What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast where everyone knows your name.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Tyler, and this is 30 and Nerdy.
And also, cheers to you listeners out there.
Yes, absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Thank you for all the subscriptions. And if you're listening to us for the first time, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, Overcast, TuneIn, Radio Public, and we have a YouTube channel. So please hit that subscription.
So, essentially anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere.
Right.
And we would love a rating, especially the 5th star.
That's the one you want.
Yes.
That's the sweet spot. That 5th star over there, that's the one you want.
Yes. So, Brother Josh, how are you?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm not going to trick you like I did last week and get all sentimental But there's not a lot going on with me. Now that it's summer, I am in the process of moving classrooms. I mentioned last week that I was in a little bit of a career change, sort of. So I'm moving schools, which means a new classroom. So I get to repaint all my Spider-Man stuff and rehang all my Marvel posters and everything. So I'm working on that a little bit at a time. But other than that, just enjoying life and enjoying this podcast too. So
me too, man.
We're having a blast.
Good.
How are you, there, young camper?
Little busy with life, work, hobbies, podcast, show, relationships. I'm telling you, man, it's just a busy life. But it looks like the family may be making the move to Georgia soon. Mom and Dad, of course, for their new adventure. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, man, it's great to be back for episode 7.
That's right. Before we get started, can I just do a quick plug for something real quick?
Absolutely.
This is not anything that we are officially connected with, but I think it's a really cool thing, and I just wanted to mention it to everybody. There's a comic book store in Knoxville called Tall Man Toys and Comics that I stumbled onto on Facebook. So they're doing this charity event this summer called Pops for Patients, and that's running from now until the 4th of July. And essentially what it is it's a charity that benefits the East Tennessee Children's Hospital. And all the comic book stores in the Knoxville area are taking donations of pops, child-friendly pops that are still in the box, and they are taking these pops to local hospitals, especially Children's Hospital, to cheer up some kids who are a little down maybe. Yeah. So I think it's a great thing, and if you are a pop collector and you've got some pops that you would like to donate, please consider contributing to this great cause. There's more information on our Facebook page. We did share that info the past couple of days, and we'll continue to share that. But just about any comic book store in the Knoxville area is taking those donations. But the list will be on the post, so check it out for sure.
That's cool, man. And you are definitely not short of pops to go through.
That's true.
So, last week...
Whew, it was a big show.
It was a big show.
It was a doozy.
Really big show.
I'm still worn out from that show.
I know, man. And I think the show went well. The episode went well. The debate went well.
Sure.
It was a big episode, and we are very happy of all the people who listened.
Yeah.
And chimed in. People who gave us their vote on who they sided with, and all the nerd news. They stood through listening to all that nerd news.
It was a lot.
But and we also talked about Marble City Comic-Con's back on.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, it has been postponed and rescheduled for the November 16th and 17th of this year. So, and we're going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a blast, just from hearing that much.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do some live podcast stuff out there and hopefully talk to some really interesting people. It's pretty exciting. Yeah. But we will remind you that here and there, Marble City Comic Con. The information is on our Facebook page.
The events.
The event is at the top, I believe.
Yes.
So easy access there to check that out. And you should definitely plan on coming out and joining us that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to have you there. Especially we may have some 30 and Nerdy swag to throw at you. Ooh. If you can answer maybe a trivia question like... who was Josh's favorite female Marvel superhero? Something like that. But you'd have to listen to our first episode and pay attention to get the question right. So we're definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah. So should we go ahead and talk about what we're going to do this week?
Yeah. I mean, this week's looking like a nice little episode as well. And we are going to bring back our segment, What You Watching? and talk about some of the new things we're watching in our nerd world.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to hit a little bit of nerd news. Definitely not as much this week as there was last week. And I believe you have the results.
Yeah, I have the results of Nerd Court.
Yeah, and
You're welcome.
and we'll get into those results, and then we're going to talk about my favorite faction in the Marvel Universe, and that's the X-Men.
Same here, man.
Absolutely. The House of M, the mutants, the evolutionary chain, if you will. And we're going to talk about the movie we saw just yesterday, Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
The last installment of the first class of X-Men that started a few years ago, but not the last installment of the Marvel Fox mutant series, apparently.
Right.
So
we'll get to all that.
We'll get to that, and we will get to all that after a word from one of our sponsors. It's summertime. Join us on the romantic island of Calicari and Encore Theatrical's hit summer show, Mamma Mia. This show is full of energy and sure to get you dancing. Mamma Mia is presented through special arrangement with Musical Theater International. Performances are June 28th through the 30th and July 5th through the 7th. Fridays and Saturdays start at 8 p.m. and Sundays are at 2 p.m. The show will be held in the James D. Swan Performing Arts Center at Jefferson County High School in Dandridge, Tennessee. You can reserve your tickets by calling 423-318-8331. For more information, you can like Encore Theatrical on Facebook or check them out at www.etcplays.org. We hope to see you there, where it's not just theater, it's encore. Alright, now we're going to jump back into our new segment called What You Watchin'?
So, Tyler, what you watching there?
Well, man, I am about halfway through Season 8 of Game of Thrones, finally.
Oh, boy.
Just saw the Battle of Winterfell.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say some
Wait,
notes.
can we just... Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. But, aside from me, if you haven't seen it yet...
What are you waiting on?
What are you waiting on? They literally have a streaming service, so you can watch it. And a couple notes I guess I would have to say is it was really dark.
Yeah,
everybody like contrast-wise, hard to see some things, and it was definitely a sensory overload. I mean,
it was a
lot of back and forth. This person fighting over there, what's going on over there, and I mean, if you have ADD, then it was a nightmare.
It was, yeah, I agree. It was dark. We had a hard time with that because we're like trying to, close the windows and, like change everything in the lighting in the room a certain way so we could see better because it was hard to tell. Like, I couldn't tell what was going on with Jorah for the longest time. Because he rode with the Dothraki into the, against the White Walkers.
Started disappearing.
And then I was like, what? Where is he?
See him die?
Yeah.
I mean,
so, I agree with you on that. I did like that episode. A lot of people hated on it.
The episode was really good. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I really like the calm before the storm moment where there's a group sitting around the fire, and then there's the Hound and Beric, and then Arya has her moment, and it's just
the previous episode.
Yeah, the previous episode. I really like that.
I look at season 8 as like 2 really big finale episodes. The first 3 is the finale of the White Walker conflict.
Yeah.
And so if you take those 3 episodes and look at them as one, it works out.
It's like a Lord of the Rings movie.
I thought it was
really
great.
Is.
Yeah.
And I'm also watching Doom Patrol. I'm starting. I'm a few episodes in, and it's definitely not Titans. It's different, but like we've talked before, how when we were growing up and young adults and all that, the Guardians of the Galaxy were the obscure comics for Marvel.
Yeah. Nobody really cared about that.
But the Doom Patrol is the obscure comics for DC. It really takes a specific taste to really get into them.
Sure.
Some fun little trivia. Brendan Fraser is voicing the big robot man thing.
Wow.
Which, welcome back to acting, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
And you don't know it's him until a few episodes in, but Matt Balmer is the guy who's wrapped up like the Invisible Man.
Okay.
And it's really, I mean, it's DC streaming service, and it's Doom Patrol.
Worth checking out, though.
It's worth checking out, definitely. So, yeah, I definitely recommend those. And what about you?
Well, we spoke briefly last week about The Flash Season 5 that I was watching, and when it comes out every summer on Netflix, I binge it in like a week or so. Mm-hmm. And I did finish The Flash, and I loved it, and I was really bummed about Cisco.
Yeah, when you were talking a little bit about Cisco last week, I was sitting there on pins and needles like, oh, don't spoil it for him.
Should we say spoiler alert again?
Spoiler alert. Cisco does cure himself in the finale.
So he left
He
the
doesn't
team.
die. He doesn't die, so there's always that open of he could, he's wanting to pursue Broadway, the actor is.
Right.
Which he has a fantastic voice.
Yeah. Maybe, the cure won't work. Maybe it wears off or something, or maybe they go into another timeline and get a different Cisco. I don't know. But,
vibe.
It's just my luck that I would talk about how much I love a character, and then right after that, he leaves the show.
Yeah. So, it really is your luck.
I'm excited about the Reverse Flash being back into the mix.
He really is the epitome of archenemy.
Yeah.
Like, he keeps coming back and keeps coming back, and I think he's the best villain on TV right now, out of all superhero things.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that, actually.
And the portrayal of it by the same guy, each season,
Tom Cavanaugh.
Cavanaugh plays a different version of Harrison Wells. And it's
super
so cool.
talented, yeah.
Very
talented.
I
loved Sherlock.
Sherlock.
The French Wells, he was really, really good.
Yeah.
I also... I made a note in my phone about King Shark versus Grodd.
What? Oh, what an episode.
That was awesome. I loved that whole episode. But I love the whole season. It's a great show.
The whole series is great.
But beyond that, we kind of said we wanted to try to watch something new every week, even just briefly to mention it on the show. I started Black Lightning.
Okay.
It's a CW original series, and it is part of the DC universe. Not connected to the Arrowverse, though, oddly enough. But I'm really enjoying it. It's on Netflix right now, and there's 2 seasons. I've seen 2 episodes, and I'm really into it. And what I like about it is it's not the typical origin story of the hero and everything like that. He's in this universe, he's already established, Black Lightning, and he's kind of retired. So he's a veteran superhero. He gave it up for his family, and he's sort of finding reasons to get back into the mix. So it's really good so far.
Yeah, and it goes back to you'll see it when you start watching Titans, but Stargirl ends up saying to Robin, "You're never really out." Yeah, and that's kind of the curse of being a superhero is you never get to go home. You never get to retire.
Yeah.
You're never out because the life will always be there.
Right.
So do you like it, though? I mean,
oh, yeah. Big time.
It?
Yeah, very much so. So if you're looking for something new in the superhero genre to check out, if you haven't already, check out Black Lightning.
Absolutely. And we will be back next week with some more new things that we're checking out, hopefully.
Yes.
And some shows, maybe a movie or two that we normally would not watch. So stay tuned for that.
On that note, do you think it's time to move on to our next segment?
Yeah, definitely. I believe it's time for some news.
Some nerd news.
Absolutely. Here is your nerd news for today. So, in the world of nerd, we have a little bit of news. Again, not as much as last week. But we want to briefly mention about Phase 4 of the MCU. Is we're about to get an announcement soon at the end of this summer. August 24th at the D23 Expo. Disney has said it will announce and show its slate, if you will, for the MCU.
The roadmap.
The roadmap, yeah.
Very excited to see it.
For Lucasfilms as well. So we'll get to see, maybe...
And probably Pixar. Everything
under the
Disney's
banner
doing, yeah.
We'll see their roadmaps.
Yeah.
And it's always cool every year to get to see that, to kind of see where we're heading.
Well, I remember years ago when they had the roadmaps for the other movies, and you could look at it and be like, "Oh man, in 4 years we're going to get Infinity War," and it seemed like so far away. So I hope there's that same excitement for whatever they have in store for us for the future. I'm sure it'll be great.
Oh yeah.
Some rumors, of course, are like Black Panther 2 and Doctor Strange 2, Black Widow, a few other things like that.
Yeah,
So
I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
Also, Sticking with the Marvel theme, Woody Harrelson officially announced as Carnage in Venom 2.
Not really a surprise
No.
if you saw the last few moments of Venom, because he did have a little cameo at the end and even said, like, oh, it's going to be Carnage when I get out of here, or whatever. So, not a surprise, but it's nice to have confirmation
Yeah,
either way.
we've been waiting for a live-action Carnage for how long?
Ever. Forever. And unfortunately, they're not yet connected to the MCU,
No.
but I think they'll probably figure
they'll
out
probably,
a way.
Yeah, but I think, and apparently Venom is a trilogy, so I'm definitely thinking by Venom 3, it will be in the MCU.
Yeah, hopefully.
Switching some gears here, just some DC news. It was reported that James Gunn is staying on after Suicide Squad to help them fix their franchise.
James Gunn, who is now mostly associated with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Who is a successful director, writer, and producer.
Right. So I'm down with that as long as he gets back to Guardians at some point.
Well, I mean, he's going to do Guardians 3.
Right.
He's already said that after he was reinstated. But he is going to stay with DC for a while and help them revitalize, rejuvenate, fix, basically.
Probably not a bad thing.
Not a bad idea. Yeah. Some more DC. Some news on the Batman Robert Pattinson universe, which is a separate universe than Gal Gadot and Momoa's Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
The DCEU.
The DCEU. It is rumored to have multiple DC villains, likes of Penguin, Catwoman, Two-Face, Riddler. Close to half a dozen villains are supposed to be said to be showing up in the first one, and it will take place in the 90s.
Okay.
And the young Batman days.
Okay.
And is definitely a trilogy. Matt Reeves has said it's a trilogy. However, let's see how the first one goes first.
Right. Well, and I saw a rumor that Jack Black is interested in playing the Penguin.
He'd be good.
I think he would be. I love Jack Black.
I lean towards Josh Gad possibly being a really good.
Is he in the running, or
he's talked about it a few times?
Yeah,
being considered for the Penguin. But I think some people might have trouble differentiating the fact that he voiced Olaf in Frozen, and can he live action play the Penguin? So
I think Josh Gad could probably do anything.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
very talented.
Very talented.
But with Jack Black, though, he would have to incorporate his Jack Black thing where he does his he does his little music guitar runs and things.
Couldn't you see him as like wah, 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 wah,
yeah, that's perfect.
It'd be funny.
Yeah.
And some more DC. Black Adam with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has apparently entered pre-production, and he will be the main star. No news yet if Shazam will even show up, but it will start out...
Shazam!
Didn't work.
Man.
And as of right now, it looks like he will start out as a hero, which Black Adam does,
Mm-hmm.
And he's finished post-production of Jumanji 3.
Interesting.
So we get another one of those. And... a weird thing is it was rumored this week that he has also been in talks with the MCU. He's considered a runner for Ben Grimm.
The Thing?
Yeah, when they bring Fantastic Four.
I don't
You don't like it?
No. It is. Wouldn't you say he's a little too old?
Well, I mean, I'd say a lot of it will be voicing a CGI monster. So
yeah, but he does. If they do an origin,
then yeah, he has to be.
He has to be Ben Grimm at first, and he's.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how they choose, what direction they go with the mythos of Ben Grimm.
I wouldn't mind them doing something similar to like what they did with Spider-Man, where the characters are just introduced already as
Like
the Fantastic Four. Yeah,
they've already been there, and they just didn't. Maybe they didn't want to interfere.
Sure,
they didn't feel it was their place the entire time.
Or maybe they, formed during the 5 years between
with the snap.
Yeah, in Endgame. So
okay.
Maybe.
And maybe they'll explain it to where, all those characters that came through the portals, well, they were there. You just didn't see them.
Right.
So you don't like the idea of The Rock as Ben Grimm. Who would you choose?
I really don't know.
It doesn't matter who you choose!
You think you're funny, don't you?
I had to. It's The Rock.
Hilarious.
But
Feel good about yourself?
I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
Sorry, Rock. I love you, but...
Final bit of news, and this is still in the DC. WB, which is, along with the rest of the world, starting its own streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
WB ENT or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. They are seriously thinking of stopping DC Universe.
Already?
And only keeping Titans in the WB. And like that would wipe out. I mean, I subscribed and I watched the old Batman animated series on it, the old Justice League cartoons, Young Justice 3. I mean, I've been watching some killer DC stuff on the DC streaming app, and the idea of WB ending it is just another way that WB continues to screw DC and DC fans. And I'm getting tired of WB being the reason for DC being bad.
Well, we'll talk about this later, and we've talked about it in the past, in fact, but part of what makes the MCU so good is that it was so well planned. Mm-hmm. And, you know, even if there's something from an early movie, like Iron Man 3, the kid from Iron Man 3 who shows up at the funeral of Tony Stark, spoiler alert, the funeral of Tony Stark just because. Like, those minor little details, because Disney does the details right, as we've said. You know, and DC...
As you've said.
You can't deny it. You can't deny it. You know it's true. Because Marvel has been so successful, DC, not so much. And it's because they don't pay attention to those details. They're not consistent. They don't have the continuity that Marvel has. And until somebody says, oh, well, maybe we should try to do it like that, it's never going to work.
Well, and the sad thing is people like Jeff Johns and Snyder have tried for years to get DC back onto that, you know, those plans. But WB keeps undermining them. And going, nah, that's not what we want to do. And if I were Johns and Snyder and them, I would have been like, I'm sorry, are you a fan?
It's because they don't care about the details.
WB doesn't care about their audience. They care about the almighty dollar, truth be told.
Well, if they care so much about the dollar and they want to be competitive with Disney, then they need to better. They need to do it right.
Hire the right directors, they'd cast the right people, and they do it right.
That's my soapbox for the day.
For this moment. And that's all I got. That is your nerd news.
Well, hopefully all of you listened last week for our first ever edition of Nerd Court.
Nice.
Yeah. And we had a little discussion, a little debate about Disney, of course. The idea was that we wanted to both share our opinions about Disney. Tyler is a little more negative about Disney, which I can't stand for that. So I had to defend the mouse, and I did my best, and I spoke from the heart. And my opinion is that, yes, Disney is a very, very large company, but they're a good company. Everything that they produce, or just about everything, is very well done. It's quality. I say it 100 times. Disney cares about the details. They do. Whether it's the movies, TV shows, the theme parks, anything. They're always trying to give you a new experience, a quality experience. And yes, they do recycle some of their old stories and characters a lot, but people love that stuff. And it works. So that was my point. Tyler?
And my point was just that it being a monopoly and as big as it has gotten, I believe has started having effects and will have negative effects on the entertainment industry in general. For instance, stagnant storylines, voices being kind of drummed out when it's all one big voice. And I think that it'll stifle some creativity outside of the Disney banner. But like I said, those were our points, you know, and I think we stayed clean. We didn't hit below the belt. And I know that our good friend Logan wanted us to get a little angrier and actually, you know, fight probably, but he's an agent of chaos, so...
He's a true heel.
He's more heel than
I don't know how he gets brought up every single episode.
Oh, man.
You brought him up.
I did bring him up.
He doesn't deserve it. You don't deserve your name to be spoken on this show. Captain Complaint.
So, Captain. So,
JK,
Josh,
I love
you did a little poll
Yeah.
on Facebook.
We
had the
decided
debate.
to let you folks be the judge, and we had a poll up on our page, and the
And
results.
I was in the minority.
Yeah, the results of Nerd Court are as follows: with 60% of the vote, Josh is the winner. Most people sided with the idea
Only
that
60%.
that's still a majority.
I understand that, but that's more than I got more votes than I thought I'd get.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. So the 60% who said Disney does it right, and it doesn't matter how big they are because it's a great thing. And then Tyler here got 40% of the vote saying Disney's too big and this is a bad thing. So your winner of the first edition of Nerd Court is myself.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good for you.
Maybe next time there, old chap.
Oh, yeah. Well, and thank you for those who did tune in and casted your vote. But as for why we're here today, we're here to talk about, in my mind, the best faction in Marvel Comics, and that's the X-Men. And we're also going to talk about and break down our time seeing Dark Phoenix
And
yesterday.
I think you could argue that it is the best faction in comic book history, not just Marvel.
Not just Marvel, I would agree that
I mean,
the X-Men are the best faction in
They
comic book history.
definitely beat the Suicide Squad.
Oh, gosh.
And all of them. So.
They definitely do.
Justice League, very, very close competition.
Very, very close. They do beat the Fantastic Four. They beat the
Yeah.
Avengers. They beat the X-Men are just fantastic. And we will get to all that after a word from another one of our sponsors.
All right.
JD.
Sir?
I'm really loving the hat you're wearing today, brother.
Oh, thanks, man. This is my official 30 and Nerdy hat.
Ooh.
It's got our logo and our name on it and everything. It's really cool.
Well, I like it. Where'd you get it?
It's funny you should ask. Just like the shirt that you asked me about last week, I got this cool hat from Advertising Expressions.
Well, that wouldn't happen to be the Advertising Expressions located right here in Morristown, Tennessee.
You know it is.
I know all about them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. You see, Zach is a fantastic guy, and he does a lot of customization work on anything you could put your mind to. They have pins, shirts, hoodies, bags, cups, buttons, lanyards, fidget spinners, pop sockets, bumper stickers, anything that you can customize, basically. He'll get it done for you. And his address, if you're looking to get some business done like that, if you're with a church, if you're with a work group, if you just like us in your 30 and Nerdy, you can locate them at 2103 Morningside Drive in Morristown, Tennessee. You can give them a call at 423-586-3270. And if you're not from here in Morristown and you're in the surrounding area, they have a website and they will get it delivered out to you. It's www.advertising-expressions.com. Now tell them 30 and Nerdy sent you, and Zach will get you taken care of.
That's Advertising Expressions, and talk to Zach. Thanks, Zach. And we're back with a little segment that we like to call Break It Down. How's that?
I like that.
Yeah. So this week we are going to do a little discussion, a little breakdown of the X-Men, and we did get the chance to go see the new installment in the X-Men franchise, the Dark Phoenix. We saw it yesterday, and we have lots of thoughts about that, and we'll get to that. But we wanted to just start with a little general information about the X-Men. So the X-Men, if you didn't know, originated, of course, in a comic book in 1963, created by Jack Kirby and Stan the Man Lee. And I was reading about, sort of Stan Lee's, first thoughts on how to introduce the X-Men. And he had said that he wanted to have a group of superheroes, but he didn't want to have to go and explain how each of them got their powers. Sure. Like Spider-Man was bitten by the spider and things like that. So he said, how about they were just born that way? They're mutants. And now we have the X-Men. And funny enough, the name X-Men, most people think X-Men because of Xavier. He's kind of the leader and everything. Mm-hmm. Stan said that wasn't really where it came from. It actually came from the fact that because the X-Men were born as mutants and they have a extra special genetic I don't know what you would call it, a
a
gene, the X
difference,
gene you would call it. They have something extra, so they're the X-Men. How about that?
I like that.
Yeah. And a lot of people at that time, they really were drawn to the X-Men because there was a lot of reflection of social issues at that time. You know, was a lot of civil rights stuff was going on then, and you have this group of people, mutants. They're born this way. They don't mean anybody any harm, but they're different and they're hated and they're misunderstood.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's all of those themes in it. Lots of people who can relate to that. You know,
and some of them, you know, were lucky to not have a physical mutation.
Oh yeah.
Like someone like Jean can walk in public and not be.
No one would know.
Nobody would know. But Cyclops walks in with his visor, or Toad,
Nightcrawler, especially. Yeah.
They go in public; they're looked at differently.
Right.
So I love the social parallels.
Me too.
Of X-Men.
Yeah.
And it's it's not gone away.
No, I mean if you're
prominent today too.
If you're someone, you know, who's maybe a minority, or you're a part of, you know, the LGBT community or anything like that, you know, it's possible that you relate to the X-Men because of some of the experiences that they have with
being
the public.
Different.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's why a lot of people love them, because it kind of gives them a safe haven of stories,
right? And
to help rise above that.
Now, all that's great and everything, but our first real introduction to the X-Men as kids came from the animated series, right? And we all remember the animated series growing up as kids. Afternoons after school, it was on. I remember my grandma, she didn't have cable or satellite or anything. She had the bunny ears. So I would get home and like try to, you know, mess with the bunny ears to get, it was Fox 43 pulled
Fox
up.
43.
And then we had X-Men and Spider-Man and all that stuff. And of course, one of the most memorable things about it was the cool music.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. That intro never gets old. And if you go back and watch, I noticed, because I went and did some research for the show, I watched a few episodes of the animated series. In the intro, like, the words X-Men flash across the screen here and there.
Yeah,
it's
constantly.
Like I never noticed that before.
At one point, Storm flies through the E or something like that, like over it. And
no, but I mean, even more than that, there's like a shot of them like running towards the Brotherhood, the bad mutants, and as they're running, you can see it like fly down by Cyclops or over his head and everything like that. So it was like, are they trying to do some sort of subliminal messaging there?
Absolutely. Fun fact, that's actually my morning alarm is the X-Men theme song.
Does it get you amped and ready for the day? Like you want to jump on the X-Jet and
oh gosh, yes.
Go
I mean,
fight the Brotherhood? Yeah,
it makes me want to be able to shoot claws out of my hands or lasers out of my eyes or something like that. But
So speaking of the animated series, like I said, I watched a few episodes. I went and watched the Phoenix Saga, which was a 5-episode arc, and also the Dark Phoenix Saga, which was 4 episodes. Mm-hmm. So I watched both of those stories, and I had a great time because I hadn't seen these in years. I own the DVD sets of all 5 seasons of the show. And the show, by the way, we talked about how it was when we were kids and everything. It ran from 1992 to 1997. It was very successful. But I hadn't seen it in so long, so I wanted to, freshen up on it. And I had such a great time, and I wrote down a few things that were especially fun for me. Beast. Do you remember Beast from the show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Beast was so cool, and I never realized how much I liked Beast until watching it this past time, because he's always like quoting poetry or great literature, and no matter what's going on, he just knows the right thing to say, and he always keeps his cool. He's like, maybe they're all being shot at by a bunch of bad guys, and Beast is like, "To thine own self be true, Shakespeare." It's like, great, Beast. That doesn't help us much right now, but and like there's this moment when the X-Men crash into the New York harbor, and this is right after Jean was, sort of connected to the Phoenix, and she rises up out of the water, and she's like, "I am Phoenix," and you just see Beast looking at her, and he says, "Fascinating." Like, way to keep your cool, man. That's awesome.
We should all strive to be as cool under pressure as Beast.
And there were other things, too, but that just shows what good writing that show had.
It really was.
And there was a Wolverine moment. You'll like this because you're a big Wolverine fan. So Banshee was in the show. Mm-hmm. And I was a little confused for a bit because Banshee looks a lot like Adam Warlock. Like, they have the same hair. And it's one thing about this show in the 90s. Like, they've got such 80s and
Drastic
early 90s hair. All their hair is crazy.
Especially Rogue.
Oh, yeah. And so it kind of looked like Adam Warlock. And I'm like, what? What is Adam Warlock doing here? He's on Muir Island with Moira McTaggart and all of them. And then he did a thing where he attacked somebody or something, and he started screaming. And I was like, okay, maybe Adam Warlock is just really amped up. And then I realized, it's Banshee. And he had the Irish accent and everything. So, Wolverine, he can't fly.
No.
Bless his heart. So Banshee's like carrying him, and they're flying into this place, and they're trying to be sneaky, and it doesn't work because of Banshee's
it's a screaming to make the waves make him fly.
And they land, and Wolverine's like, oh, with a mouth like yours, we should have just tried sneaking in here with a marching band. And Banshee's like, if you think that's bad, you should hear me sing. So little things like that. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, bub.
I got to see cool things in this story arc, like Juggernaut was a part of it. So I got to see Rogue and Jubilee versus Juggernaut, and that was really cool. And dude, can we just talk about how awesome was Gambit?
Gambit was cool.
Gambit may be like the coolest X-Man.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm a Wolverine fan. You can't say Gambit's the coolest.
Wolverine's pretty cool.
Well, Gambit's not second. Second best.
I don't know. I think that Wolverine is cool in a different way, though.
Yeah.
Like, Gambit was smooth. He was a smooth talker. He was charming and suave.
Cajun.
Yeah.
Yeah, mon ami.
Yeah.
I loved the Cajun. And he's... I honestly... they attempted him in live-action movie one time.
The Wolverine
It
Origins.
just didn't work.
Wasn't the same.
You really gotta grasp the same as the animated.
I appreciated the effort.
Yeah.
But
it was more effort than some other movies have taken.
Yeah. But I would much rather see it done like the animated series.
Exactly.
So hopefully, one day when MCU brings the X-Men in, maybe we'll have Gambit and he'll be done right.
In all honesty, the guy who plays one of the Reavers in Logan, well, if it ain't the Wolverine,
oh yeah,
he'd be a good Gambit.
Yeah.
So talking about the animated series, who's some of your favorite characters?
Gambit for sure.
Okay.
We both love Rogue.
Mm-hmm.
I love Magneto in just about any
form or fashion.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about Magneto that I'm so drawn to, but I love Magneto, and the animated series was no exception to that. Like I said, Beast was a lot of fun. I've always loved Jean Grey. Here's one that we're going to disagree on: Cyclops. Why? Why not?
I think I touched base on this in our first episode. If you ask me my favorite of any universe, any show or anything, it's never the leader. It's never the goody two-shoe, do the right thing leader, first of all. And
typically I'm the same way.
And Cyclops is like that. And I understand, we've had this disagreement before where the way he talks down to Wolverine. And maybe, and you're always like, well, he's trying to move in on his girl. I understand that to a point, but he still talks down to him like an animal.
And
he sees him as an animal.
Wolverine is so nice to Cyclops too, right?
Well, no, you get what you give.
I think Cyclops is cool, and I think he's a great leader. And
I didn't hate Marsden as Cyclops,
and the fella from the First Class version.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't know his name. He was in Ready Player One.
Oh,
I thought he did I thought he did a great job. So go Cyclops.
Not too bad. So, what's some of your favorite moments?
Well, it's hard to say because it's been so long since I've watched it, but I just have very vivid memories of the first few episodes, like the Sentinels attacking and them bringing Jubilee into the mansion and us meeting them. Any time they did a crossover, like with Spider-Man, Captain America did one, little appearances here and there, things like that. I loved
when it was Gambit, Storm, Jubilee, and Rogue, and they were trapped on this island, and it was made to look like a vacation resort.
Was it where they dampened their powers?
They dampened their powers in the really hot cells, and
they put Storm in that box, and she's claustrophobic.
Yeah, and she's having flashbacks and PTSD. That moment sticks out because even though there were some villain mutants on the island, they all had to band together.
Right.
Because humans were putting them in, let's be honest, concentration camps on the island. I also, really enjoyed the story arc of Morph. Even though he was in... Because, our buddy Alex sent in a question, and he's like, where's Morph? Whatever happened to Morph? Yeah. And if you stay tuned, like he dies, quotes, end quote, in the first episode. He gets shot by a sentinel or electrocuted by the fence. But then he shows back up under Sinister's control. Mm-hmm. And he's like, almost like Theon Greyjoy is to Ramsay.
Yeah.
Kind of under that control.
He comes back here and there to make, brief appearances.
I think he's underrated.
I would say so, yeah.
I love his ability because he's basically like Mystique.
Do you know that originally his name was going to be Changeling?
Really?
But they had to change that because Beast Boy goes by Changeling as well from DC. So they couldn't do that. So he became Morph, which is a lot better, I think.
Which is cool, yeah.
For him.
That's cool. Do you have any other underrated mutants in your eyes? I liked the Morlock stories.
I hated the Morlock stories. Yeah, that wasn't for me. I don't know. But do you remember how stupid muscular all of the characters in the show were?
Defined.
Oh, yeah. And like the female characters, the women were like
defined.
They knew what features that they needed to accentuate.
And it was subliminal. Like, we looked over it. Yeah. We never thought about that stuff.
Like Rogue and Storm. And, any others that came in. Like, but even the bad guys, like, random villain was, like, stacked.
Yeah.
Muscular.
Yeah.
So.
Like, one episode villain looks like today's John Cena.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's never going to be on again. Why does he have this definition? So, after the animated series, then, not too long after that, 99, 2000, they brought the X-Men to the big screen.
Right. I have a list here of the entire franchise. So what I'm thinking is I'll just kind of briefly mention the name of the movie and when it came out, and we can just kind of say, hey, here's what we liked about it or what we didn't like or whatever. Just some general thoughts on it. Sound good?
Yeah.
And that music right there. Yeah. The theme from the X-Men.
You.
Good job.
I had a button at the ready.
You're starting to learn. I'm proud of you for that. So we'll start at the beginning because that's always a pretty good place to start. It started with X-Men in the year 2000, and we know this was our first glimpse at Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Yeah. Perfect choice. Oh. Sir Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier, Sir Ian McKellen as Magneto, James Marsden as Cyclops, Halle Berry as Storm.
Which it was questionable for me because the only thing I'd known about Halle Berry at that time was she was in the Flintstones movie.
That's right. Yeah, but she did it.
I hadn't watched any of her adult movies like that grown-ups watch.
Did you notice that like they gave Storm sort of the accent in the first movie, and she didn't have it in any of the
Halle
ones?
Didn't carry it on through 2 or 3.
Continuity, not so good.
That's when you start seeing it.
Yeah,
even early on, Fox had problems with continuity.
The details matter. So, memories from that movie. What do you remember most about it, really?
I remember not liking Rogue.
Oh, nobody liked
Poor
Rogue.
Anna Paquin.
Yeah. I try to accept the fact that it's a different version of the character. It's not what we were used to, but for this story, it worked.
But I would have given her nuances for fans to kind of lean on.
Yeah.
Have her say sugar.
Yeah.
It's
like she had an accent. She was Southern, I guess, but she didn't have all the little catchphrases like Rogue had and all that. And Rogue could fly and had super strength, and this Rogue only had the power draining ability with the touch. I did like how they incorporated the white streak in her hair, though, with Magneto at the end.
At the Lady Liberty battle.
Right.
That was cool.
Yep. So, moving on from that, we had X2 in 2003, and this one primarily dealt with some sort of the origins of Wolverine.
Yeah, over at the Weapon X program, hidden in the dam, and Stryker was in it.
We saw them invade the X Mansion. That was a cool scene.
Yes,
Wolverine's going through the mansion.
We met some of the kids.
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde, Colossus, Bobby as Iceman, Pyro, some of them. But I in Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler was in that, yeah.
It was Alan Cummings. I loved his accent.
Which is another continuity thing, because in the First Class movies that we've had, Nightcrawler is a part of those movies. He's on the team. And then they meet him for the first time in X2, which is years later. So what is that about?
Continuity.
Right.
Good old Fox and their continuity. Probably the biggest memory of that movie is the flood at the end.
Yeah, when Jean's holding the flood back so that the rest of the team can escape, and we see that little flash of the Phoenix, setting us up for the next movie, which was X-Men The Last Stand in 2006. And part of the theme of this was, the mutants splitting apart. We had, the X-Men and then Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And speaking of social parallels and things, some people make the comparison of Professor Xavier to Dr. Martin Luther King because they both were like, we need to be peaceful and we need to show people that, we're the same, we're equal, we want to peacefully protest. And that's sort of what Xavier felt. And then some people will compare Magneto to Malcolm X because he was a little more violent. He thought, this is a means to an end, and we got to do what we got to do.
Xavier was more like, if you keep doing the right thing and be the better person, humanity will catch up with
we're
us.
never going to change the view that people have on mutants if we go down the path of violence.
Yeah, and Magneto was all about using fear.
That's proven them right.
Yeah.
And he's saying, well, we're just going to rise above them and we'll rule them.
Yeah, and Magneto's was, we are better than them, Charles. So let's use that.
Yeah.
It was rough. X3 was rough,
Definitely the least favorite. I was excited about it because it had the Phoenix stuff, and I'm such a big Jean Grey fan and Phoenix and all that, and there was a lot of Magneto stuff. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, and we got to see Beast.
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer's Beast. And he was more like the animated Beast. Intelligent, talked a little bit more like a politician, if you will.
Sure.
And we saw the death of Charles Xavier, which was, at that time, like, it just took your breath away.
Yeah.
But
shows you how dark the Dark Phoenix really is.
Because Jean would never want to.
She does not recognize friend from foe. And the Phoenix is all about rage and lust and power. And so she just destroys everything in her path without a second thought. And the fact that it was Xavier, the most powerful, psychic mutant in the world.
And a father figure.
Other than Jean Grey.
Yeah.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Well, for now.
For now.
And then he comes back.
And then they soft reboot prequeled X-Men with the Origins.
Okay, we had Wolverine Origins in 2009. It was...
Which changed some things from X2.
Yeah,
different striker.
Yep.
How he became part of the Weapon X was totally different than the flashbacks in X2.
Well, they referenced the origin of Wolverine probably 5 different times throughout this entire franchise, and it's different every single time.
Exactly.
With the exception that William Stryker is there.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. So.
And we have a different Sabretooth in that one.
That's true, too. Totally different.
Totally done different.
The worst thing about that movie? Deadpool.
Oh, gosh.
Deadpool. It was Ryan Reynolds.
Like we wanted.
Which, when he was Wade Wilson in the beginning and he was just
you automatically are like, he's perfect.
He's
perfect.
Great.
He's great.
And then they do this weird, experiment where he's got, sword arms and he's got Cyclops vision powers. And
teleports like Blink does.
But they made a joke about, you're the perfect soldier, Wade Wilson, if I could just keep that mouth shut.
Yeah, if
so they sew his mouth shut. So we don't get wisecracking Deadpool. We just get zombie.
Breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, zombie weird Deadpool.
Zombie Wade.
Yeah, everybody hated that.
But they made a joke about it in the actual Deadpool movie.
Right,
he had a toy of it.
The action figure.
It's terrible. Yeah. So then we go into what was next?
First Class.
First Class.
So the new series of the Young X-Men. This was in 2011. We get James McAvoy as Xavier, Michael Fassbender as Magneto. Great choices. I was always very, very pleased with what they did with the characters.
Great.
We had Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique and Nicholas Hoult as Beast. Great stuff. The first one was set in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis, which will be important for something that we want to talk about on the Dark Phoenix here in a little bit. So, the origin of the X-Men. Great movie.
Uh-huh.
What else?
Got to see Emma Frost. and the Hellfire Club.
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian, as Kevin Bacon played Sebastian.
Sebastian Shaw.
And,
Kevin Bacon.
That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see Nightcrawler's father, Azazel,
Mm-hmm.
which was
There was
version.
a little hint of what was to come, because in the end, Mystique leaves with Magneto and the bad guys.
Yeah.
And Azazel's there, and we know that
they make
Nightcrawler is the
offspring,
fruit of their
labor.
Yeah.
So
next,
getting into the next one, which was
the Wolverine, 2013,
and they loosely based it off of the comic series where he spent time in Japan.
Mm-hmm. That's a big part of the Wolverine story.
Yeah. Because he's like the samurai with hand claws instead of swords.
Not much memorable about the movie, except when you get to the very, very end. Because I remember being in the theater and we were just like, I wouldn't say we hated it or anything like that, but we were just kind of like underwhelmed with it. It's like, oh, it's 2 hours of Wolverine, cool, great. But then we get this. I should
be on cloud nine about that.
Yeah,
but it's a bad story.
It was just me. But we get to this scene at the end where Logan's walking through the airport and everything freezes, and we see some coins in a little bowl, at the metal detector, and they start to float and move around, and I knew immediately what was happening, so I was stoked about that. And then we see Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart walking down towards Wolverine. Everything's frozen, and they're like, okay, we need your help to set up for the next movie. Man, that made that movie worth it.
Right?
That scene
is the best part, because Stewart's back.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, so he resurrected his mind in the comatose patient from X3 and somehow physically changed himself back into Charles.
And we hadn't seen him since 2006.
And Magneto's powers are back.
Yep.
That were supposed to have been cured. So you could say that's continuity problems and holes, but I think it was just an underlying everything got fixed.
Yeah.
Without Wolverine's knowledge.
So this then leads us to the Days of Future Past. I would say probably arguably the best of the new the first class series.
You get to see past and present.
It was the older generation of X-Men, and then we get to see their younger counterparts, and they're all fighting for the survival of the mutants in the future.
With the Sentinels.
And they send Wolverine into the past, and he has to try to fix a few things.
Yeah, he has to keep Mystique from killing Trask and the President.
Mm-hmm.
He has to make sure that Eric and Charles work together on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they introduce Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Coolest scene in the movie, I think.
Definitely. Quicksilver in Days of Future Past and in Apocalypse, he had his whole scene where everything is in slow motion. There's music playing. Like, the first one was Time in a Bottle, and he's running around this room.
Moving the bullets.
I think they're at the Pentagon, aren't they?
Yeah, and there's a sprinkler system on.
Yeah.
And
and he takes his time to, put the guards in silly positions and things like that, and it's really, really cool. Everybody loves that. And Apocalypse, he had one where he was pulling all the kids out of the X-Mansion while it's exploding, and they're playing Sweet Dreams.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
Yeah.
Cool moments. Quicksilver's pretty great. And then we get to the Dark Phoenix, which we'll get there in a minute.
Another continuity error that we haven't talked about before. Because before we get to Dark Phoenix, there's Age of Apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
And we've got young Scott.
Yeah.
And young Jean.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you think back to Wolverine Origins, Wolverine saves young Cyclops from Stryker.
Mm-hmm.
And they get on the jet with Patrick Stewart, Xavier.
And I want to say that Emma Frost was in that, too.
Emma Frost was a kid in it.
Yeah.
But then she's an adult in first class, working with Sebastian, and in the movies with a younger Xavier.
Yeah. So it's
they destroy the continuity.
We don't pay any attention to what we've already done.
Yeah, just forget it. Just ignore all that. But it's also the same.
So after Apocalypse, we have the Logan standalone movie in 2017. It's kind of meant to be Hugh Jackman's send-off, his final appearance as Wolverine. He did a couple of things here and there, just briefly, like little cameos, but that was his last full movie as Wolverine. Yep. And it was awesome.
It was beautiful. It had that old Western feel
for sure
to it, and the soundtrack was the underlying music, and every scene was just
I remember
powerful.
In the trailers when they played Hurt by Johnny Cash, and I was like, this is awesome.
And it's in the future when apparently Charles had some kind of seizure and killed 90% of the mutants in the world. Yeah. So, he's sick and dying and very old, and Caliban's in it, played by someone different than Caliban in Apocalypse.
Right.
Another continuity problem.
Yeah.
And then we get out of Logan and we're into
the Dark Phoenix.
This movie.
So we saw the Dark Phoenix, and you know what? It was great if you don't care about continuity or anything like that.
If it was the only
timelines,
movie that they let out.
Some major problems with the movie. As we've said multiple times now, continuity was a big issue in this movie. For example, we're kind of led to believe that Jean is encountering the Phoenix Force for the first time when they're in space, and something goes wrong, and the Phoenix Force sort of merges into Jean, right?
Yep.
And takes over. So this is meant to be the beginning of that. However, at the end of Apocalypse, Jean kills Apocalypse with the Phoenix Force.
Becoming the Phoenix.
So what is that?
Even shape, she outlines herself into a fiery bird and just blazes him away.
Yep.
That's the Phoenix.
Yeah.
But in this movie, what's the Phoenix?
Yeah.
This is the Phoenix Force.
Unless there's something we're missing here, which there could be, but either way, that's not a good way to tell the story.
Well, I mean, different director in almost all of them, different directors, different producers, and it's just that causes continuity. If you're not paying attention to the last person's details that they put in their movie, then how can you make a successful follow-up?
Well, and then, in the end, they rename the Charles Xavier, school for gifted youngsters. They change it to the Jean Grey School.
Which never happens.
I'm down with that, I guess, but we know that in X-Men in the year 2000...
Just 8 years away.
No, 7 years away.
7 years away.
Because this was in 1992.
No,
I'm sorry, you're right.
No,
8 years.
92 to 2000, yeah.
Yeah. So, I keep thinking it was 1999 for some reason. So, we know that Jean's still there.
It's the Xavier School.
It's the Xavier School still.
Uh-huh.
So, what is that?
And Mystique's not dead. And she dies in Dark Phoenix, and then what? 8 years later, she's with Magneto, old Magneto.
Yeah, which is another thing. Okay, we love Patrick Stewart and we love Ian McKellen,
and we love McAvoy and Fassbender.
Definitely, but if you think back, I mentioned this earlier in First Class, 2011. That movie was set, like I said, in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
The one we just saw, Dark Phoenix, is set in 1992.
30 years.
That's a 30-year difference. Okay, they did not age the actors in any way.
Charles went bald, sure.
That was an Apocalypse, though.
That was an Apocalypse.
We saw that, and I was okay with that. But, there were no wrinkles. Michael Fassbender wasn't great or anything like that. Okay, remember, Magneto was in the Holocaust when he was, 14 years old.
Yeah, and I know they're mutants, but at the same time, you have to age them as time goes on.
Well,
we
especially
get gray-haired Magneto just 8 years later.
8 years after this, suddenly James McAvoy is Sir Patrick Stewart, right?
No,
and
you don't.
Patrick Stewart was not a young man in the year 2000.
No.
I'm sorry, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
Like he is today, of course, 20 years later. But come on.
But he wasn't Picard age.
So I had problems with that.
Continuity again.
Can we talk about some good things about it though?
Well, yeah, I guess we can talk about some good things.
You're having a hard time coming up with anything good.
I am.
Well, I think that the
bad.
fight scenes were all really good. I would venture to say that the fight scenes from this movie were probably the best out of all of them. I really enjoyed that stuff. Magneto had some cool moments. Cyclops had some cool moments. Jean especially had some cool moments.
These are good fight scenes.
Very, very much so.
I mean, but good fight scenes cannot save a bad story.
No, you can't.
And the villains were useless.
We had, out of all of the lore of comic villains in the Marvel Universe that they could draw from,
even legally they could still draw from.
They
tons.
Have these made up alien villains. Jessica Chastain gets possessed by an alien, and they want to...
And they also are shapeshifters.
Right. They want to possess the Phoenix Force, so they're kind of after Jean.
Mm-hmm. They don't exist in any other
Why? Why could we not have
anywhere.
Mr. Sinister? Or why couldn't they drag Apocalypse over into this or something like that?
I would have even taken Omega Red or the Morlocks or any of them over this made-up alien
random
species
aliens
that looks like Groot, by the way.
Bit, yeah.
It was just bad, and they're already on pace to lose $100 million
Ouch.
in this movie.
Ouch. That's not good.
Secret Life of Pets 2 beat it in the box office this weekend.
Harrison Ford is in The Secret Life of Pets.
He is.
So that's all you need for a blockbuster right there.
Oh, yeah, it's Harrison Ford.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. You know, it was bad. I can't say anything is good except the fights. And the cast. Like, the cast isn't bad.
The cast is great. Yeah.
Their performances are not bad. But sadly for them, they had to perform in a bad story.
Yeah. I'll definitely watch it again. And, you know, I own every superhero movie that is ever released, so I'll have the...
Really?
Pretty much.
Do you own the old Superman?
Okay, that's true. I don't own that one. But in recent times, I have all the X-Men, all the MCU, and all the DC things. I have all those, so I'll definitely get it and watch it again. Yeah. And I'll just try to enjoy it for what it is. But I was underwhelmed.
If you disagree, let us know.
Sure.
If you have found some other points that you thought of that we haven't mentioned.
I mean, there's definitely things that we're missing here. Yeah. I have a friend from college who he saw it like the same time that we did, and he posted about it. And he said, "Oh, it's really not as bad as everybody's saying," which I would agree with. I think I've said before, the internet is unfair. It's not as bad as it seems, but it sure wasn't great. It was. I'll never forget that. You know, the credits hit, and you and I look at each other like,
"What was that?
Huh?
What was that?"
Now, let's be fair though. There's one movie left.
New Mutants.
The New Mutants will come out on April 3rd of next year, and maybe they'll go back and fix all of this because I don't understand the reasoning behind it, unless it was just a big middle finger to everyone because they knew that this is it. We're kind of just trying to wrap this up, and Disney's going to take over and do it better.
Well, in all honesty, if they knew that was coming, I'd have stopped with Apocalypse.
Well, I mean, one thing, though, that we found out yesterday was that the ending of Dark Phoenix was supposed to be a lot different, but James McAvoy had said in an interview that they had to change it because it was too similar to another superhero movie. Don't know which one for sure.
Yeah, don't know which one. But it was somewhat
Captain Marvel, maybe.
Yeah, it was a space battle, was what it was supposed to be.
So maybe that was a factor in it, but yeah, it's not their best work for sure. So
not their worst, but not the best.
If you're listening to this and you haven't seen Dark Phoenix, or you were planning to, or whatever, our recommendation would probably be wait for the red box.
Yeah, wait for the red box. So, moving forward, the future of the mutants. Once they are in the MCU, which it's been rumored that it's a good 3 or 4 years out before we can start.
I think it needs to be, though, don't you?
Yeah, I think we need to wash our taste out of our mouth of some of the bad.
Yeah, I mean, we need to get the common, everyday audience member, you know, who people who don't know the history of the stories like we do, they're not as well versed in it. They might get confused, you know, like, I thought that James McAvoy was this character. Or I thought, you know, it might be confusing for them.
That's another big problem with the Batman stuff. I was like, so we had Batfleck 2 years ago, and now you've rebooted it, and next year we'll have Robert. You're confusing the average moviegoer, the average comic fan. Yeah. You're confusing them.
But surely they'll be smart enough to.
So how do you think they get brought in, though?
We've talked before about you know, some of the events from Endgame. Maybe. There were 3 snaps, and that definitely can't be for nothing. There's got to be some repercussions because of that.
There's a theory that this Wanda Disney Plus series that's going to happen is her in search of other mutants. That she had a gene all along, and the Tesseract just brought it out. They're calling them enhanced in Age of Ultron.
Right.
Correct? But they were actually mutants that just had it brought out in them. So, that's a theory. It it's definitely going to be a while, and we look forward to seeing how they're introduced.
For sure.
I definitely think that it's going to be fun, and Stranger Things have happened.
Hey, speaking of Stranger Things, that's the perfect segue. Because next week,
yes,
we are going to have a deep dive into Season 1 of the Netflix original series, Stranger Things. Now, it's been a while since I've seen it. I think you've watched it a couple of times. You're a pretty big fan of it. I enjoyed it, but I don't remember it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to binge watch it. And next week, we're going to discuss Season 1 of Stranger Things.
Because on July 4th,
all right,
Season 3 comes out.
Absolutely.
And everyone is extremely excited about that. So we're going to binge it. I'll watch it again because I love the show. And we'll discuss it, deep dive into Season 1. So if you have any questions about Stranger Things or any of this X-Men stuff that we have talked about, please send them in.
Please send them in. And we're also going to briefly discuss some of the highlights of E3 for you gamers out there. E3 is happening this week, and we're excited to see what big games are going to be introduced, or maybe new consoles.
They showed some play footage of that Fallen Order Jedi game.
Oh, it's going to be
pretty good with Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah. Can't wait for that.
Very excited. But definitely send in questions. If it's about E3, we'll answer them. Stranger Things for next week. Any of the X-Men stuff. If you agree, if you disagree, if you have a question that maybe of something we missed or something you'd like for us to talk about a little bit more or get in detail on, please send them to us. We're on all social media platforms. We are on Twitter at 30andNerdyPod, and that's 30, not spelled out, 30 and NerdyPod on Twitter and Instagram. Like us on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. And subscribe to us on all those podcast networks that we mentioned earlier. And, man, I believe that's another one in the books.
I am worn out already. It's been another long show, a doozy. And I am tired of looking at you again. So I think that we should call it quits for today. Until next time. Yeah?
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, I'll see you there, man. And we'll see you nerds later.